Hello everybody, and thank you for watching this video. In this video, we're going to introduce you to our course together, um, myself, and what's going to be going on for the next 6 weeks. This is entrepreneurship, so you're in the right place. This PowerPoint or this video is designed to help you navigate the course, the assessments, and what the next 6 weeks looks like. More specifically, today's objectives are I'm going to introduce myself to you. Okay, so I think it's important for me to give you some context about who I am, what I do, some things I'm thinking about. We're going to introduce the course to you, okay, like at a high level, and then we're going to get a bit more nitty gritty into the assessments or your assignments. I'm going to show you where to find some important resources for you as young entrepreneurs. And then we're going to describe entrepreneurship and how this course fits into the entrepreneurial process. You'll find that as we progress through these 6 weeks that you're actually following the entrepreneurial process, which is important because in some cases it's a step-by-step process, and our assignments help us accomplish that. So by the end of this course, you should be able to have a presentation ready for a potential investor. Okay, I understand there's a lot going on right now with COVID-19. Once everything opens up again, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for young entrepreneurs like yourself about to graduate. And this course, you can make it what you want. So, as long as you're passionate about your idea and the business concept that you're going to be creating, you could take this to the bank. In theory, and I'm here to help you with that. As a general introduction to myself, my name's Dave. Okay, so there's no need for Professor Cleary or Professor David, or I'm not a chef, so Dave or David is just fine. I've been a management professor for 4 years, 5 years now actually, um, teaching primarily within business. I have specializations within services management, service recovery, accounting, and then just general business management. So that's human resources, operations, pricing. Um, in terms of practical experience, I've had 13 years of managerial experience within food service, primarily with Cara or Recipes Unlimited, with both quick service restaurants, so QSRs, and full service restaurants, so FSRs. I've also done some M&A work, so mergers and acquisitions within freight and logistics. Um, my application there was within accounting, so I was consolidating statements, I was doing valuations, I was basically helping entrepreneurs understand what they would get out of a deal, or if they could make a deal, and what their business was valued at. In terms of an academic background, I obtained my BCom, so my undergrad, in 2011 in marketing management. I have an MBA in hospitality, which I graduated in 2014, and I'm currently a DBA candidate focusing on service recovery in food service. So basically, I'm sure all of you have been to restaurants, maybe not recently, but you may have experienced a problem in those restaurants, right? So it could be the timing of the food, your food is cold, your server's not so good, you waited too long to be greeted. These are all service failures. So when service goes wrong. Now, organizations have to recover, service firms have to recover from those failures to keep their loyal customers or guests. And my research aims to help operators in any kind of food business to keep their loyal customer base, because that's where money's made. Um, Reichheld published an article in, I believe it was 2013, named the one number you need to grow. And that number was customer loyalty. So I am focusing my doctoral degree on customer loyalty. I've just solidified my supervisory team, one of which is the prior or the previous coordinator for the degree program here at GBC, Dr. Ryan Wibbs. And my other coordinator is Dr. Terry Beckman. I say that every time. Beckman, who is the Associate Dean for Research and Innovation at Athabasca University. So I'm excited to continue my learning. I'm still a student, so I can appreciate what you're going through right now. I know it's kind of a crazy time. I know we have a rather short semester. However, I'm here for you. It's in this particular course, it's difficult because you're going to find that you already have everything that you need to know to complete this course. In this course, I am a professor with a college, but I am your project advisor, which we'll talk about in a second. Other than my experience and my academic background, my personal interests are gardening. I love to garden. I love to grow vegetables, primarily tomatoes. I grow a lot of tomatoes, onions, spring onions. What else? Tomatillos. Tomatillos were a big thing for me last year. I love Indian food. I love American food. I've tried my hand at fusion recently. Last night, for example, I tried doing a really quick fusion of Chinese and Mexican. I felt it worked. My fiance did not feel it worked, but that's okay. Other than that, I'm a home brewer, so I make my own beer, wine, and sometimes liquor, but don't tell anybody. Um, one of my new passions is creating ciders. So that's hard ciders, so apples, pears, things like that. We originally had a plan or a business plan to create a cidery. It kind of fell through. This was just after my MBA, mainly because I had an opportunity with the college and I didn't want to commit the capital to a really tax intensive industry. That's not to say I'm not going to do it. It's just kind of on the back burner for now. So that's a little bit about me. I hope to learn a little bit more about you through office hours and our communications together, which is what I'm going to talk about next. So contacting me, okay? If you need to talk to me, and I'm sure you will, because this course is 100% online. If you need to contact me and it's urgent, or if you just have a question, please feel free to send me an email at david.cleary@georgetown.ca. I'm pretty good with answering emails. However, please allow for 48 hours on weekdays between 9 and 5 p.m. That's kind of a staple statement that I have to put in there. However, I'm pretty good at getting back quickly. Okay. While this course will involve a lot of pre-recorded lectures for the first part of the week, I will have live office hours on Blackboard Collaborate each Thursday between 10 and 12 p.m. So 10 in the morning to noon, and then 1 p.m. till 3 p.m. Okay, so there's two-hour windows where you as a student can come to me with any of your questions, your concerns, or even your feedback, okay? And I will help address those concerns. These office hours are for people who have questions. Okay, so attendance is not mandatory. I'm not going to be giving out any additional information for people that are there. It's more about answering your questions and advising you on your projects. Okay, you'll find that this semester you're going to be each assessment or each assignment is going to build on each other. So you're building one big project. Okay, and each assignment 1 through 4 helps you create that project. So I'm here because you already have all the knowledge you need to have. I'm here to help you refine the project, make it better, make it something that you could take to the bank or a potential client in the future. Okay, so think of me as an advisor instead of a professor. Okay. On the weekends, if it's in an if oh goodness, if it's an urgent email, okay, I will respond to you. However, if it's a very simple question that can wait till Monday, I'm gonna take my weekends as my time, and I'm a firm believer of that. As long as it's not a very intense situation or a situation where a student would require an immediate response, it's going to be responded to on the Monday following that weekend. Okay. But like I said, during the week, I'm very good at getting back to student emails. Okay. So if you have a question, please send me an email. If you don't want to do that and you want to talk to me face to face, log in to Collaborate on Thursday between 10 a.m. and 12 noon or 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. and ask me your questions. I've set those times for my office hours because I know based on your schedule that you have time during those slots to come and ask your questions. As for a general overview of this course, there's a couple things you need to know. Firstly, this course is an assignment-based course. It's almost a capstone, if you will. Okay, you have 4 assignments to complete. There will be some lectures, but realistically, you already have everything you need to know. You've gone through menu development, you've gone through cost controls, you've gone through HR, you've gone through a bunch of courses that have helped you prepare for this course. Okay, those courses, along with my guidance and your ideas and your passion, will help you complete those 4 assignments. This course will use pre-recorded lectures and tutorial videos to help you understand what is being expected of you for these assignments, how to complete them, how to use various databases and worksheets that we're going to be using. But other than that, there's really there's not a whole lot of content being delivered here. Okay, you already have everything you need to know. As such, while we are scheduled for 2 classes per week, use the first class of each week based on your schedule to watch the videos that I've posted to each assignment's folders. Okay. Understand the assignments, and then what we're going to do with the second class time is work on and complete the assignments before their due dates. Okay, so ideally at the beginning of the weeks, I'm going to show you what the assignments are, how to complete them, what's expected of you, the rubrics, things like that. And then the second part of the week, you're going to be working on and completing the assignments. Okay, so for a specific detail of when we have classes and when there's independent study, which is you working on your assignments, please refer to our course outline that's posted on Blackboard. Okay, I'm also a very avid online communicator. So originally this course was designed for online learning. So there wasn't much of a transition here. So at the beginning of every week and at the end of every week, I'm going to send out an announcement saying, hey, this is what we're working on this week. This is what you should be doing. Watch the videos, understand this, do this. At the end of the week, I'm going to tell you kind of what you should have completed by then, and then what's coming up next week. Okay, so please monitor your George Brown email on those dates, and you'll be well in the loop. Okay. More generally, your assignments in this course are going to have you create a food business concept as well as a menu. Okay, you're going to standardize the recipes that are on your menu. You're going to gather some costing information and make some assumptions. You're then going to cost out those recipes as well as your rental equipment. You're then going to present plate plans for your dishes and give a pitch for your concept. Okay, so this is essentially you generating a business idea based on some research, which I'm going to talk about in a second. Okay, you're going to create a menu based on your target demographic and your business concept. You're going to standardize those recipes. You're going to cost out those recipes, and then you're going to present plate plans, rental equipment costs, and a pitch for your idea. Okay, you can make this what you want. In the past, I have asked students to keep it to a catering concept, so food catering. A lot of students have really not liked that idea, which is okay, and I totally get it. Entrepreneurs come from all backgrounds in life, all experiences, things like that. So the last 2 semesters, I've allowed students to do anything in terms of a business idea, anything they want to, as long as it's food related. So in the past, I've had students create food trucks. I've had students create full service restaurants. I've had them create takeout restaurants, quick service restaurants. I've had them do food production. I've had them do, I don't know how I would describe this. Online ordering for niche items. One of our students had a very particular recipe for a set of different kinds of kimchi that he wanted to sell online. You can do that, okay? As long as it is food related and a food business, we're good to go, okay? I'm not going to put the restriction on you. I know you have your own passions. I know you have your own interests, so make this what you want as long as it's food related. If you like to bake, it could be a bakery. It could be an online bakery. You like making pierogies, and you're really great at making pierogies. It could be a pierogi catering business. You want to own a restaurant? Let's do a restaurant. It's up to you. Okay. This course is what you make of it. All right, and here's our weekly topical. Okay, again, for my purposes in the course, you have all the knowledge that you need to complete these assignments. My role here as your project advisor is to help you understand what's expected from each assignment, help refresh you on some of the content, and provide you with, means to practice, right? So some tutorial videos and things like that. So week 1, this is what we're doing. We're introducing the course and assignment number 1. Okay, got nothing to do this week. Week 2, we're going to be introducing assignment number 2 to you, or your standard recipes, which are based on assignment number 1. And at the end of week 2, your assignment number 1 is due. Okay, so we're getting a little bit ahead in the content to just help you understand what's expected in the future, but also give you a head start with an understanding of what you're being asked to do next. In week 3, we're going to give you an introduction to assignment number 3, which is your recipe costings, which are based on the menu you develop in for assignment number 1, and your standard recipes with assignment number 2, and based on some costs that you're going to be finding in assignment number 3. At the end of week 3, your assignment number 2 is due, so your standard recipes are due at the end of week 3. We'll say Sunday. Okay. Week 4, assignment number 1. There's 2 parts to assignment number 4, so we're going to be covering part number 1 of assignment number 4, which I believe is creating plate plans, a table setting, and identifying what your rental costs are going to be for your business concept. Okay, and then at the end of week 4, assignment number 3 is due. Moving on to week 5. Okay, so as I said, assignment number 4 is covered in 2 parts. Part number 2 is what we're going to cover in week 5. Okay, and part 2 of assignment number 4 is taking all of the assignments that you've done to that point and putting them together into one PowerPoint presentation that you would use to pitch your business idea to a potential investor, a client, what have you. Okay, you have nothing due in week 5 or at the end of week 5 because you should be working on completing parts 1 and 2 for assignment number 4, which is due in the final week of the course, or week 6. So assignment number 4 is due the last week. During week 6, we will not be covering any content because the expectation would be that you're wrapping up your final assignment. Okay. You also probably have tests and assignments due that week, so I think it's good to get ahead a little bit and not have any content during week number 6. Okay, so this is our weekly topical. I don't foresee any changes to it. The assignment due dates will be posted on Blackboard. The weekly content is already also posted to Blackboard. Instead of labeling everything weekly, I've labeled it by assignment. Okay, so when we're talking about assignment number 1, you go to the assignment number 1 folder under our weekly learning materials, and this is where you're going to find all the videos and stuff like that. Okay. So I'm just going to put them all up here. Sorry, I didn't think they were transitioned. So here's your assessment overview for the next 6 weeks. First and foremost, passing grade in this course is 50%, as is all theory classes. Assignment number 1 is worth 20% of your overall grade. This is where you're going to submit a report to me communicating the theme of your business concept. So like, what is your business, or what do you want your business to be? Your target demographic, or your target customer, or who are the customers that are come to your business, and you're going to submit a menu to me. Okay. Assignment number 2, you're going to standardize the recipes on your menu, and you're going to consolidate the ingredients that you need as well as their costing information for 30% of your overall grade. Assignment number 3, you're going to use your standardized recipes in conjunction with your as purchased costs as found in your ingredient consolidation list to cost out your recipes. So you're going to cost out every recipe on your menu for 20% of your overall grade. Then finally, in assignment number 4, you're going to create plate plans for every one of your recipe items. You're going to show your rental costs for any equipment that you would need to launch your business idea. And then you're going to create a PowerPoint slide deck that you would use to pitch your idea to a prospective investor. Okay, you're not actually going to give a presentation. You're just going to use all of the assignments that you've created so far, condense it into a PowerPoint presentation to show an investor, who you are, what you're doing, what your menus are, what your costs are, what your recipe costings are, what your plates would look like, what kind of rental equipment you need, and pitch it to a potential investor. This final assignment is around 30%, is 30% of your overall grade. Okay, so for probably the next 10 slides or so in this video, we're going to be going over the details for your 4 assignments. So these are the expectations, what should be done, things like that. So these are the instructions for your 4 assignments. They all build off each other, so I'm going to talk about them sequentially, starting with assignment number 1. This assignment requires students to identify a food-related business, having conducted some research, Okay, and I'll show you where to find, or I'll tell you where to find that research in a second. You're going to look at, using that research, you're going to identify previous successes, current and future business and consumer trends, as well as popular developments in our industry. Okay, research, and this is essentially what we call in entrepreneurship concept ideation. So this is where an idea for a business is being built. Okay, research is super important during this phase of entrepreneurship because you need to be able to justify why you think your business is going to be successful, right? If you've watched Shark Tank, if you've watched, all those entrepreneurial pitching TV shows, they, participants come in, they talk about their business, but they also tell their, prospective investors why they think it's going to be successful. And nobody is going to invest in a business that, they don't think is going to succeed, right? Think about it. If your friend came up to you and was like, hey, I need 10 grand so I can start this food truck, but doesn't tell you why that food truck is going to be successful, why would you give them the $10,000? You might lose your money, right? And we like money. Money pays our rent, money pays our tuition. We understand the importance of money. So we use research as a justification, so we use research as a justification to communicate why we think our business idea is going to be successful. So on Blackboard, I've posted resources in the entrepreneurial research resources folder under assignment number 1 that helps you identify current, future, and past trends. These these reports come from conferences such as Restaurants Canada, Hospitality Leadership, Restaurant Leadership conferences, and they all cover what people are doing currently in the market. So, sustainability is a trend. Cannabis can also be a trend. Things like that. Food trucks, it has data on a whole bunch of things, including customers. So, what do customers want from a business? So how you incorporate these past, current, and future trends is you say, okay, so here's my idea. So let's say I want to be a food truck. Okay, I'm passionate about food trucks. I want to create a food truck, but I have to tell someone why it's going to be successful. I can use future trends to show potential investors that my food truck is going to be successful. For example, if sustainable packaging is a future trend, okay, so this is biodegradable takeout containers, biodegradable straws, things like that. I can say, hey, I want to create a food truck for my business, and then whoever I'm telling that to is going to say, okay, why do you think that's going to be successful? And then you say, well, the research has identified that sustainable packaging is a future trend, and it is really popular with consumers right now. And my business, my food truck, would use all biodegradable takeout containers and biodegradable straws, and customers really identify with that. So I think that my business would be successful. Okay, that's one justification. You have to have more than one. Okay, so there's lots of trends going on right now. You use your business idea and you try to understand how you can apply those trends to your business to justify why it's going to be successful. Okay, a lot of times these trends also have a target demographic that comes with them. For example, right now, millennials love sustainability. Sustainability. They want to know that their food is being created with their food is organic. They want to know where it came from. They want to know that it is ethically procured. They want to know, they want to make sure that when they're doing business with somebody or coming to a restaurant or a food truck, that their decision to do that isn't hurting the environment. Okay, so in some ways, these trends also tell you who is going to be your biggest customer, and that's what we call a target demographic. Target demographic are the identifiable characteristics of your perfect customer, right? So these are dimensions like age, gender, income, What else? Household size, location, things like that. Okay. These demographics help you identify who, or specify, I should say, who your target customer is. Okay, so you also have to, you can't just say, okay, this is my business. I think it's going to be successful because this, and this. You also have to have an idea of who your customers are going to be. Okay, and that your customers would actually come to your business, right? For example, if I said, um, I'm going to create a super high-end uh, uh, fine dining restaurant, okay, and I've justified it with the research, and my target demographic is going to be men and women, all single, with an average income of $40,000 a year. There's a little bit of a problem with that, right? $40,000 doesn't really, as an annual income, doesn't really, you know, they can't afford to come to your restaurant because you're super fine dining. Okay, when someone, your prices also dictate, basically who can come and participate with your business, right? So if you have a really high price point and your target demographic doesn't make a lot of money, it's not really justified because they can't come buy or use your products or services. So in assignment number one, you're identifying a business idea, you're justifying it with the research, and you're also proposing your target demographic or who your customers are. Okay. You're also going to be creating a menu, which I'll talk about in the next slide. So continuing with assignment number one, so specifically, as I had mentioned before, you should be preparing a 4-page double-spaced report that proposes your business concept as well as your target demographic or your specific customers. Okay, this concept should be communicated in a concise manner that is justified with research on the topic. Your target demographic must also be justified as correct, or as these people would come to use your business with research. Okay, again, research is important. And sometimes the target demographic is easily implied. You just have to give a justification for it. For example, if I'm a food truck, you know what I mean? In no way, shape, or form am I going to say, am I going to limit my target demographic to men that are making over 120 grand a year? There's no point because any other gender, for that matter, can come to my food truck. So why would I limit? The purpose of identifying your target demographic is identifying the market size for your business. Okay, although you don't necessarily have to communicate the size of that market. Okay, I can't stress this enough that the research is super important because it provides a justification as to why you believe your concept is going to be successful, why your customers would actually come to your restaurant or your business, and it has implications for your menu. So lastly, I'm just going to put it all up here. There we go. So lastly, once you've completed your report, so your 4-page double-spaced report on what your business concept is and who your target demographic are, you are going to be completing a customer-ready menu for your business. Okay, your menu. When I say customer-ready, I mean it has to be creative and attractive enough so that you could take it and put it down in front of a customer. Okay, we've all been to restaurants before. We've all seen what menus look like. I've included a tutorial video on how you can create a creative menu on Blackboard. The idea here is that this should be almost a finished product. Okay, I'm going to give you feedback on it, but the menu should be pretty much finished and ready to be given to a customer. Okay, the menu should be limited to 1 page. Okay, and your menu should include at least 1 appetizer, 2 entrees, and 1 dessert. Okay, in the past, I say, well, first of all, this is a minimum. So 1 entree, 1 appetizer, 2 entrees, 1 dessert. That's at a minimum. Okay, and it's perfectly okay to do the minimum here. Okay, I don't restrict students on how many food items they want to create for their menu, but understand if you create a 10-item menu, you're going to have to standardize those 10 items. You're going to have to cost them out, and create plate plans for them throughout throughout these 6 weeks. So keep this manageable. Okay. In the future, if you were to actually do this, you can always increase the amount of um, of items on your menu. Okay, but for our course, because I want this to be manageable for you, at the very least, one appetizer, two entrees, and one dessert. Um, so in the end, each student should be submitting their report, they're detailing what their concept is or their business idea with their target market, and a completed guest-ready menu. So 2 items. So I want a Word document um, showing me what your business is, why it's going to be successful, and who your target market is. And then I want another showing your completed guest-ready menu with your menu items. Okay, and again, if you haven't written a menu yet, perfectly fine. I think you've taken menu development, but just in case you haven't, I've included a tutorial video on how I did that, and I'm going to show you an example of one that I created. Okay, so there we go. I know I'm, kind of saying this a lot, but research is super important. Okay, it provides a justification for, what you're saying. Okay, because we have to do research, and because you did not conduct the research yourself, you have to cite it. You have to use, you have to have a reference page in your report, and you have to use APA style referencing. Okay, I think it's the easiest. Most colleges and universities use APA. You must also cite in text. So if you're saying, okay, so in a report published last year, found that 98% of millennials like sustainable packaging, you have to reference that because it's not your idea. It's somebody else's and they've done the research on it. So you would reference them. If I was the author of that particular research, the in-text citation would be bracket, my last name, or Cleary, comma, the year of publication. So last year, so 2019. There's lots of manuals on how to do citations and APA referencing. Even in Word, if you go to references, the reference tab on Word, there's a citation and reference generator. So you just put in the information for what you're trying to reference. It creates a reference for it that goes in your reference page, and it creates in-text citations for you. So you just click and put it into the sentence that it applies to. But again, research is stupid important. Okay, when you're talking about money, things need to be justified. Okay, people want to know why and how. Okay, I posted a video here. This is what happens when you do poor research. People aren't going to believe your business is worth anything. Okay, you have to justify why something is the way you say it is. So if you're saying my business is going to be successful, why is that? Okay, always ask why. Right in your head, you're like, okay, so I am really passionate about this business and I think it's going to be successful. In your head, say why. Who cares? How do you know this? You have to have a justification for it, and the justification comes from the research. So take a quick look at that in your own time. That's just I think it's like a 4-minute Shark Tank video. Okay, obviously the gentleman, I believe it's a gentleman in this particular video or episode, doesn't do very well. So watch this, and again, always try to ask why or how or who cares when you're making propositions about your business. Okay, so research, research, research. So assignment number 2. So this is what we're going to be talking about in week 2. Assignment number 2 builds off of week 1. Or sorry, assignment number 1. So assignment number 2 requires you to create standard recipes for each of the menu items and consolidate the ingredients that you're going to be using with costing information. Okay, so while this is kind of a study at your own pace course, and I mean, we have due dates, of course. Assignment number 2, we're communicating the details during week 2. Keep in mind that that assignment 1 is due that week. Okay, so as you're creating assignment number 1, keep in mind that assignment number 2 builds off assignment number 1. So what you're going to be doing in assignment number 2 is creating standard recipes for each of the menu items and then gathering the costing information. At a high level, standard recipes are just telling people, or identifying what ingredients are in each recipe that's on your menu, how much of each ingredient, the method of preparation, so how you actually cook the menu item, and then identify any relevant temperatures, so cooking, hot holding temperatures. You also have to identify the number of portions that each recipe is going to create and the portion size. With assignment number 2, keeping this as simply as possible for you, you could very easily create or standardize each recipe for one portion. Okay. Doing so, is a lot easier because, and in a lot of cases, more logical, right? So if you have a steak dinner on your menu, you're not going to create a recipe or standardize a recipe that creates 10 portions because you don't cook 10 portions at once. Okay. In creating these standard recipes, you're going to be using the standard recipe template that's posted to Blackboard. It's an Excel spreadsheet that contains all the columns you need to communicate exactly how your recipes are created. Okay. Then after you've identified your standard recipes, you have to go out and find the costing information for each ingredient that you have on your menu, which I'm going to talk about in just a second. Okay, so I guess before I talk about the ingredient consolidation, I'm going to continue with specifically what you're being asked to do with your standard recipes. So you have to show the amount of each ingredient that is used in the recipe. You should be listing it in order of use. So basically, which product is used first should be listed first. You have to show the method of cooking or preparation for each of the dishes, the cooking temperatures, as well as cold or hot holding temperatures, the amount of portions that each recipe will make, and the portion size for each recipe. Okay, you'll easily identify what you need to do when you see the template itself. It has sections for all of these things. Okay. So this is where the ingredient consolidation comes in. So once you've completed your standard recipes and you've standardized each of the recipes that is on your menu, you're then going to use an ingredient database that's posted to Blackboard to find the as purchased costs for each of the ingredient you need to create your menu. Okay, so basically if you need plums, you go to the ingredient database, which is basically just a giant list of ingredients. You find plums on that list and you find its costing information. Okay, that's what it would take to purchase that product. You don't have to specify how much of the product you want to purchase, just the purchasing price per unit. Okay, for example, here plums I believe was $1.50 each. So each plum is $1.50. Okay, it's important to note that again, you don't need to state how much of each ingredient you need, just the costing information on a per unit basis. So again, plums $1.50 each, prime rib was $10.21 per kg. Okay, this is your as purchased cost. If you remember from cost controls, the very first step in recipe costing is finding your as purchased costs, and this is how we're doing that. So we're scaffolding these assignments. Once you've identified the costing information for each of your ingredients, you're going to transfer that information to the appropriate tabs in the Entrepreneurship worksheet. You're going to use the Entrepreneurship worksheet for the next couple assignments. Okay. And again, when it comes to next week, I'm going to show you what this looks like. I'm going to take you through it. So if you're like, what is the Entrepreneurship worksheet right now? Don't worry about it. Okay. We're going to talk about it in the future. So the last piece of assignment number 2 is just continuing with the ingredient consolidation. So let's say you've transferred all the costing information to the Entrepreneurship worksheet. You also have to identify the recipe unit. Okay, so this is the unit of measure that you will be using that ingredient in your menu. Okay, I have an example here. So let's say we use plums. Okay, they're $1.50 each, and the recipe unit is grams. Okay, so we use 100 grams of plums, let's just say. In this case, first let's Acknowledge that we've identified the as purchased cost, which is $1.50 each, and the recipe unit, which is grams. Okay, but then ask yourself: can you easily convert? Uh, can you easily convert the costing information from $1.50 each to 100 grams? No, they're not easily convertible. So you have to make an assumption. You have to ask yourself, how do I convert the costing information from each to grams? You're going to need to make an assumption and communicate about how you did that. So I have another example here. Let's assume, and this is my assumption around plums, let's assume that one plum is 100 grams. Okay, that assumption allows us to take the $1.50 cost per each, divided by 100 grams, and that gives us the cost per gram. Okay, so this assumption, so that one plum is 100 grams, allows me to convert that $1.50 each to grams. Okay, if that was a little confusing, again, don't worry about it. We'll get much more into it next week. All right, I believe this is the last slide for assignment number 2 details. So when you're submitting assignment number 2, please submit a copy of your menu, your standard recipes, and your consolidated ingredient list. Okay, your menu was submitted in assignment number 1. I just need a copy of it. Your standard recipes will use the standard recipe template, and your ingredient consolidation list will be submitted using the Entrepreneurship worksheet. And again, I will show you where those are next week. This assignment, I believe, is due in week 3, okay? And this assignment is worth 30% of your overall grade. In the past, I don't think students find the ingredient consolidation list hard, because it's quite literally transferring costing information. I'm essentially preparing for assignment number 3, but the standardized recipes, where I think students kind of have an opportunity from past experience, is the method. So you have to communicate how you make each dish. You have to be clear and concise, but also complete. Okay, so if you're using onions in onions and carrots in a stock, it's not enough to say cut onions and cut carrots and add to pot. Okay, cut carrots how? Is this a julienne? Is this a slice? Is it a dice? You have to be specific. Okay. So the method of preparation doesn't just include what you're doing with the products, but how each product is prepped. Okay. And again, during week 2, I'll be going over this in a little bit more detail, and posting some exercises of me completing a standard recipe, and tutorial videos about how to use the ingredient database, as well as how to use the entrepreneurship worksheet. Not sure why it's putting all these in here. So assignment number 3 is very simply recipe costings. As you can imagine, this is the assignment where you cost out each of the recipes that's on your menu. This assignment builds off of assignment number 1 and 2, in that you are costing out the recipes on your menu, and you're using the costing information and the standard recipes identified in assignment number 2. Assignment number 3 will use the entrepreneurship worksheet again, because this is where all your costing information lives. And I'm going to show you how you can use Excel to make this recipe costing a lot easier than maybe what you've done in the past. It's also important to note that if you're planning on going forward with your education, okay, so you're almost done, there's other certifications that you can be getting, like the CCC, or the Certified Chef de Cuisine. The entrepreneurship worksheet that we are using in this course is the black box worksheet that they use in the CCC for their capstone. So it's giving you that experience that you, or preparing you for an experience you might have in the future, or giving you exposure to what the CCC, the expectations there are. Assignment number 3 is worth 20% of your overall grade. And in preparing you for this assignment, I'm going to be posting a tutorial about me costing out one of my own recipes, but also giving you an overview of what the worksheet looks like, and what some of the terminology means. Okay, because sometimes it can get kind of confusing. But again, I'll be posting videos to show you exactly how we're doing this. So getting a bit more specific about the requirements of assignment number 3, you need to, 1, show the as purchased costs for each ingredient in the recipe. This is what you identified from assignment number 2. You're going to have to identify and show a logical yield and edible portion of a product. Okay, remember that most products that we use are not 100% usable, so they have a yield. For example, using an onion, if you're using an onion in a salad, you can't use 100% of that onion because you have to take off the roots, the top and bottom, and you have to take off the first 2 layers of the onion. So you're going to have to identify a yield for that product. So let's say an onion has a 85% yield. That means only 85% of that onion is edible. So based on the yield, you're going to identify the edible portion of each ingredient. Once you've done that, you're going to show your recipe unit costs based on the edible portion and the as purchased costing information. You're then going to cost out the amount of the ingredient in the recipe and assign the recipe an overall cost, including a provision for wastage. Okay. Once you've done that for each one of the recipes on your menu, you're going to submit your worksheet to me, and I'm going to evaluate it. Okay. I think that I mean, a lot of people get kind of like intimidated by recipe costings. I think if you follow my process, and that's really what I teach here, is the process of costing out a recipe. Once you do it once, you can do it a million times. Okay, so I believe I'm covering this in week 3. By the end of week 3, you will be a pro at recipe costings if you're not already. There we go. So assignment number 4, our final assignment. Yay! We'll be covering this in week 4 and week 5. So I'm breaking assignment number 2, the instructions, into 2 weeks to make it a bit more manageable for you. Assignment number 4 requires you to show your plate plans or a visual of each of your plated recipes or menu items. You will also show a visual of your table setting. Now, okay, before I get into that, I'll continue with my next bullet. You will also show the rental costs of the equipment you would need to plate your dishes and set your tables. So examples of this is plates, cutlery, glasses, tablecloths, and anything else you think you need to deliver your product on a table. Okay. So you have to show visuals for a few things in the first part of assignment number 4. So this is what we'd be covering, I believe, in week 4. Now, how are you going to do that? There's 2 ways you can do this. Okay. You can make the recipe yourself, take a picture of it, and use that. Okay. Or if you're artistically inclined, I am personally not, you can draw a rather detailed picture of each of your recipes. Okay. I understand these are weird times. I'm not asking that people go out and buy product to make your menu items, because that is, I don't want you having to go out and buy food if you don't have to. So drawing a visual of your recipe is totally acceptable here. Just make it relatively, good. I don't know how to say that without sounding funny. The idea here is that you have to communicate visually what your dishes look like. Okay, I'm not an artist, so I'm not going to be critiquing you on your artistic skills, but it has to be a general representation of what your plates would look like. Okay, there are a little bit more details to this. For example, each plate plan has to have a legend showing where the products are. Okay, but I'll get into that in more detail in week 4. Okay. You have to show a visual of your table setting. So again, you can very easily draw this or take a picture, dress up your kitchen table and take a picture of it. If your business concept does not have a table, for example, if you are doing food production or you're doing a food truck, you don't have tables. So you would show me what your takeout containers look like. Okay. How they're sourced, what comes with it, and provide a legend as well. So again, if you have questions about how, in week 4, if you have questions about how your table setting applies to your business, let me know and I can help you out with that. And then lastly, you're going to show the costs for the rental equipment you need. I've posted a link to a rental company on Blackboard. It has pretty much everything you're going to need. You just identify the amount of each thing that item or rental piece of equipment that you need and record the cost. Okay. And there's a template for that as well. So I will show you that during week 4. This is essentially the first part of the final assignment. In the next slide, I'm going to show you what the second part of the assignment looks like. Okay, so this would be assignment number 4, part 2. So once your plate plans, table setting, and rental costs have been identified, you're going to be asked to put together a PowerPoint presentation that you would use to pitch your idea to a potential investor. Now, you're just creating the presentation. You're not actually giving the presentation. Okay. This presentation needs to include all of the assignments that you've done prior. Okay, so you're essentially telling an investor, this is what my product, this is what my business is, this is what my menu is. Here are my standard recipes with my costing information. This is what each of my recipes is costs, and here are my plate plans, table setting, and the list of rental equipment I need. Okay, I put a breakdown here. So your PowerPoint presentation is going to include basically what you did in assignment number 1, assignment number 2, 3, and the first part of assignment number 4. You're going to put all of these items together in an attractive and creative PowerPoint presentation, and that's what you're going to submit for assignment number 4. Okay. I'm going to be posting an example, and I also have some tutorial videos already posted about, how to use PowerPoint, how to use transitions, animations, things like that, and what information you should be including in your assignment number 4. Okay. Once you've done all those things, you submit your assignment. This is due at the end of week 6. Okay, so the last week of the course, and you have essentially the last week of the course, so week 6, to complete the entirety of assignment number 4. So as you may have guessed, or kind of put together, entrepreneurship is kind of a process. Okay, uh, entrepreneurship, it's a process where the building blocks of early stages of concept ideation, everything builds off that. So this is how your assignments are designed. They're designed to build off each other. So at the end of the course, you will have the a general way to communicate or pitch your business idea to an investor or a potential client. While this is a good starting place for a business proposals take a long time. It includes a lot of financials. Because of the timing of this course, and that's not just because this is a 6-week course. Even in the 14-week version of this course, I don't have students create financial statements. Okay, in the past, I don't think you've taken an accounting course, or maybe if you have, not everyone has, and it requires a lot. You need income statements, balance sheets, cash flow statements, things like that. I mean, some people would disagree with me, but I mean, I've done a lot of M&A work, not a lot, but I've done enough to know that you need a full spread of financial statements for someone to make an informed decision. And that's just not possible in this course. Doing those things, an income statement, balance sheet, and a cash flow statement, that's an entire 14-week course in itself. I know that because I've developed and teach the accounting courses. So for our purposes here, we'll have a good idea or a good start on a business proposal. But again, because the entrepreneurship process is just a process, you won't have a complete business proposal, but you'll have the foundation or backbone for a proposal in the future. So once you've created this assignment or your 4th assignment, which is composed of assignments 1 through 4 essentially, in the future, you could take that and start to create some financial statements around it. Okay, but again, for our purposes in this course, it's virtually impossible. We just don't have enough time. So for the remainder of this PowerPoint presentation, we're going to be talking about what exactly entrepreneurship is. So we're going to be putting some context around the assignments and what entrepreneurship is. I feel like a lot of people misunderstand what entrepreneurship is. If you go online or go on YouTube, there's a there's a bunch of speakers that complicate what entrepreneurship is. This is what entrepreneurs eat. This is what they should think. This is what time they should get up. This is what time. This is what they should wear. You know what I mean? Everyone has their own opinion about entrepreneurship. Um, I'm, as an academic, I'm going to boil it down and keep it simple for you by showing you a few definitions. I'm also going to show you how entrepreneurs have changed over the course of time. And then in the end, a very, very simple way of thinking about entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship um, is in some cases, the way you think, or is in some cases what you do, but it's not the only thing. Okay, so again, in the rest of this presentation, I'm going to be introducing you to the concept of entrepreneurship and the entrepreneurial process. Okay, you're not being tested on any of this information. However, this information does help you put the assignments within context, and it'll also start to, show you how to, not think like an entrepreneur, but start that creative process. So as a general introduction to, entrepreneurship, entrepreneurship has gathered a lot of traction within the United States and Canada. You'll find that even students coming out of high schools have an aptitude or even an appetite for being a manager or owning their own business. Um, as early as 2007, there was a study that showed that 9.6 of Americans were actually engaged in starting a business, making them an entrepreneur. Um, that was less than 3 years old. Okay, I think that while this was in 2007, the statistics nowadays is that a lot more millennials are getting into becoming an entrepreneur. Even side hustles. A lot of my friends they've found being an entrepreneur doesn't need to be terribly complicated to start. For example, going back to my early university days, some of my friends, what they would do is they would buy things off eBay and off eBay. That's where it was around, not Amazon. When I was in my first year of university, they would buy things and then flip them on their own website. Normally, what they would do is they buy workout equipment, and if you work out or you own your own workout equipment, you'll know that these things are pretty much, weights are pretty much $1 a pound. So if you've got, a 10-pound, 20-pound, and a 35-pound dumbbell, well, that's almost $100 worth of dumbbells right there. So they would buy them super cheap and flip them as more expensive. Some of my friends or people I know that were, still worked a day job, they had their own side business. One of my friends, excuse me, she was a corporate banker, but she made phenomenal pierogies. So she had a catering business that made pierogies. What would be another example of small little startups? Consulting businesses. I work with. I have my own consulting, not a consulting group, but I do consulting on my. I used to do consulting on the side with Loud Harbors. My dad is also a consultant. He's been an active entrepreneur for his entire life. I think that what kind of unites us all is the idea that we can do something, we can do it well, we can do it by ourselves. So why not make ourselves money, right? There's going to come a point in your life, if it hasn't happened already, that you're going to be working for someone and you're going to be like, hey, you know what? I can do this really well, and I'm tired of making somebody else money. It's time to make me money, right? And that's where, that's how my dad started. He started in freight and logistics, and he was like, hey, I'm managing this guy's business, and, why don't I just do it for myself? I've been doing this for 20 years, and that's how he got started. And, I was born. He made a lot of money with what he was doing. He did some consulting, he did some investing. So entrepreneurship, you don't have to it doesn't have to be something huge. It just has to be something that makes you money. Okay. And yeah, so the general idea here, or introducing the very topic of entrepreneurship to you, is that it has gained a tremendous amount of traction and appetite over the last couple decades, and this is illustrated in things like Uber Eats, Uber itself, Skip the Dishes. These are all people that are using their free time and making money. I mean, you wouldn't necessarily call them entrepreneurs, but it is their business. You know what I mean? So yeah, so what we're going to talk about now in the following slides is, definitions. There's various definitions of entrepreneurship. I'm going to show you how we can take all those definitions, boil them down into one, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the entrepreneurial process, how entrepreneurial firms compare to conservative firms, and how the dimensions of an entrepreneurial firm are also dimensions of the entrepreneur, him or herself. Okay. So what is entrepreneurship? There's a couple of definitions here. The first of which is, an entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is a process by which individuals pursue opportunities without regard to resources they currently control, right? So the idea here is, hey, you see an opportunity, here are the trends, and here's how I can put the trends together into a business idea. While I don't have the money to make this happen right now, I can begin to pursue this idea with the entrepreneurial process, whereby securing capital or resources to make this a reality. So in the beginning of entrepreneurship, you don't have the resources to make your idea successful. You need to gather support and garner resources to make your vision possible. Another definition here is that entrepreneurship is the art of turning an idea into a business. Okay, so the two definitions here, the two keywords that I'd like to pull out is from the first definition is process, and from the second one is art. This entrepreneurship thing is both a process and an art. Okay, it's a process that builds upon each step, right? So you have a business idea. What do you do next? What do you do with that? You know what I mean? It's a step-by-step process, but it's also an art, right? There's no scientific model. There's no scientific equation that tells you whether you're going to be successful or not. So there's an art to this. There's a human or a social component to entrepreneurship, right? It's an idea that you have created, right? But it's also a process by which you make that idea a possibility or a reality. As to what entrepreneurs do, they assemble and integrate the resources that they need, so people, money, the business model, and strategy, and they take that invention or an idea and they create it into a viable business. So this applies to both of the definitions, in that, organizing money, people, and strategy is an art, but it's also a process that's needed to transform your idea into reality. Okay, so from this, you need to understand that entrepreneurship is a process, but also an art. So corporate entrepreneurship is the conceptualization or visual brainstorming of entrepreneurship at the firm level, which is essentially what your assignment number one is doing. All businesses or firms fall along a conceptual continuum that ranges from highly conservative to highly entrepreneurial. Okay, so in your head, think about highly conservative on the left. Now draw a line from highly conservative to all the way to the right, and on the far right is highly entrepreneurial. These two are essentially opposites of each other. Okay, any business or any firm can be placed on this continuum, and its placement is referred to as entrepreneurial intensity. Now, what that means, I'll talk about in the next slide, because the conservative firms are very different. They're opposite of highly entrepreneurial firms. Okay, so here's that continuum. Okay, so highly entrepreneurial firms and highly conservative firms, right? So if you're a highly entrepreneurial firm, you're proactive, you're innovative, and you're not afraid to take risks. Okay, these are companies like Amazon. These are companies like Apple, Um, they're usually companies that are super innovative, and they're heavily invested into research and development. Um, they're rather fluid, so excuse me, so that they can adapt to the environment that they're in. For example, right now, with COVID-19 going on, um, the firms that have been able to weather this storm obviously have needed some government assistance, but also they have been able to flex their operations rather quickly because they're so innovative and fluid. They're also really proactive. So they're continuously doing research. They're proactive to the issues that are coming up. You know what I mean? So, for example, Cara Foods, um, I would say they're a little bit more conservative, but example of them being proactive was their straws, right? Different nations across the world have banned plastic straws. I think one example is Australia, I believe. Them being proactive to that trend, or to maybe that change in policy, is getting rid of their plastic straws. So the entrepreneurial firms are proactive, innovative, and they take risks. Okay. The conservative firm on the other side of the spectrum is takes a much more we'll wait and see posture. They want to see what works and what the market will accept, and then they after they've observed some success from other businesses, then they'll make a move and make a change, right? This what would be an example here? This is usually when you see substitute products. They come from conservative firms, right? So they wait for something to become popular and then they produce that product. Okay, they're less innovative, so they like to again wait and see what's popular and what's going to work. They use what's tried and true, and what's worked for them in the past, and they're much more risk adverse. So they don't like to take a whole lot of risk. So if there's risk that they're going to lose some money, they don't want to invest that money because there's a good chance that they're going to lose it, right? Um, what would I mention here? Um, a term that you might have a hard time saying is isomorphism. So isomorphism comes from institutional theory in organizational science, and it's the idea that most businesses over time will look and operate the same way. Most of these businesses that we observe isomorphism, that we investigate isomorphism in, are businesses that are conservative firms, right? So basically, they see a business that is being successful in one area, because they know that business is being successful. It's less risky, and they're going to model their business after somebody else's success, so they're less innovative, right? Um, this means they're essentially copying success, and that's why looks the same. Businesses look the same in many ways. For example, if you've ever gone into a doctor's office, the layout might be different, but the same people are there. They use the same kind of reporting. They use the same techniques, and that's because that's what's been happened before. If you're going into a lawyer's office, right, while the layout might be different, they all do this exact same thing. What would be another example here? Even quick service restaurants. Think about Tim Hortons and McDonald's, right? Tim Hortons was doing really awesome with their coffee, right? Uh, McDonald's tended to copy a lot of what Tim Hortons did. Okay, so they wanted to get into the breakfast scene. Uh, they made their coffee, priced it very similar to Tim Hortons, has a lot of the same products that Tim Hortons does, and the reason why they did that is because they're a conservative firm. I mean, so is Tim Hortons, but the reason they're launching those products is because they've seen success that Tim Hortons has had. They're so it's less risky, so they're going to do it because they know they can make money at it, and they're using a lot of the same technologies to produce those products, so it's less innovative, right? On the other hand, entrepreneurial firms, they're more along the lines of what we would call it's called contingency theory in organizational science. It's the idea that businesses, in order to be successful and be sustainable long term, they need to be really fluid. They need to be proactive and innovative and more risky in order to bend and adapt to their environment. So entrepreneurial firms and even entrepreneurs themselves are much more flexible. They tend to be very fluid organizations with horizontal organizational charts opposed to vertical. Okay, whereas conservative firms tend to be more bureaucratic that follow a lot of isomorphism. Okay, what's important to note here is that if you look at some of the three dimensions of entrepreneurial firms, so proactive, innovative, and risk taking, a lot of those dimensions also describe entrepreneurs themselves, right? They have innovative ideas. They're proactive to the trends in the future, okay, which is, I've given you a lot of resources to be proactive to those. They're innovative because they take those ideas and turn it into a business idea, and they take a lot of risk because they don't really know that their business idea is going to be successful, but they do it anyway. Okay, so they take risk. So why become an entrepreneur? Okay, so if we know that it's risky and it's going to take a lot of time and it's going to take a lot of effort, why would we do this crazy stuff, right? There's three general reasons why people become entrepreneurs and start their own businesses. First is a desire to be your own boss, right? Um, we we have all had bad bosses and we've all had good bosses, right? At some point in your career, it may be happening right now, it may be happening later for you. You are going to have a desire to be your own boss. Okay, I've been my own boss since I was probably 19. Okay, well, okay, I've had a boss. I mean, I've always had a boss, but I've always been in management, so I've only ever had one boss. Okay, um, uh, but at some point, you're going to want to be your own boss. You're going to want to make your own schedule. Tell yourself how much you're going to want to make, right? Um, as an entrepreneur, you dictate all the rules. You dictate how much money you make, opposed to going up to your boss. And I'm sure most of you have done this already. Like, how intimidating is it, approaching your boss, being like, "I would like a raise, please." When you're your own boss, you don't have to ask that question. You just call the accountant and say, "I want a raise. Thank you. Bye." You also have a desire to pursue your own ideas, right? For example, excuse me. While you're in a conservative firm or while you're working with somebody else, you're basically pursuing their idea, right? If they want to do something, it's your job to make it happen. You may have your own ideas, and as an entrepreneur, you will, right? When you start to shift into that entrepreneurial mindset, you gain a desire to pursue your own ideas instead of somebody else's. Okay. And then the last is financial rewards. I mean, at the end of the day, people, we want to make money. Why do you go to work? You got to make money. For the entrepreneur who does it well and is successful, there are financial rewards. Okay. Um, it is important to understand that we live in a capitalistic society. Okay. So we, can own the means of production, and we also get the reward for the risks we take. And as an entrepreneur, you're taking a lot of risks. You get the rewards, and those rewards are money. Okay. Um, as you know, the son of an entrepreneur, a lot of my upbringing was, I had when I was a kid, I didn't necessarily want much, but everything that I needed was always there. There was financial rewards for my father because he was an entrepreneur himself. Sorry, my throat's drying up for talking too much. And it's okay to want money. Like, realistically, I mean, we want to be socially responsible and sustainable and environmentally ethical. However, at the end of the day, it's okay to want to make money, and that's what a lot of, if I'm ranking these three reasons to become an entrepreneur, financial rewards is always there, and it's always a a motivator for wanting to become an entrepreneur. So here is where we've identified some of the four primary, or we're going to identify some of the four primary characteristics of, what successful entrepreneurs have. Okay. You will each have differing levels of these dimensions. However, you all have at some point a combination of all four. first and foremost is you have to have a passion for business. You have to have a passion for the process. You have to have a passion for making money, but also, creating a business. Okay. You have to have a product and customer focus, right? Your products and your customers are what make your firm money. You have to have a customer oriented focus with your service and a product oriented focus because that's what your consumers consume. Okay. Without this focus, we would have bad service and poor products, right? You have to be focused on creating amazing products on your menus, and you have to have the customer focus with your service. So this is identifying a correct target demographic for your business, and making sure that your customers will want your products. Third is execution intelligence. At this point, I believe most of us would have done an externship or at least work in industry or have worked in industry. I know right now it's a little tough, but you have a general idea of how a kitchen in a restaurant or wherever you're working has worked, right? You know what a line cook is, you know what a chef does, you know what a sous chef does. You already have a lot of these things, not least of which is execution intelligence. The final one, I think this is usually the hardest dimension to identify, and also trying to improve. It's tenacity despite failure. So it's an enthusiasm to keep trying even though you got it wrong. Okay. Even me as a teacher or even as a leader within food service, I've failed many more times than I've succeeded. And it wasn't, the failures were, they were tough, but I learned from those failures and I continued, and that's what gave me success, is learning from my failures, right? Even as a teacher, you know what I mean? Like, have I always had this right? Absolutely not, right? It wasn't without student feedback and failing a few times that I became a better teacher. You know what I mean? And I would like to think that I became a better teacher because I had tenacity despite failure, right? We're not expected to get it right the first time, but getting it right the final time is based on an enthusiasm to continue and succeed despite previous failures. So every entrepreneur, and a lot of you in this course have a lot of these characteristics already. Okay, and that's why it's possible for you right now to be an entrepreneur. You have a lot of these characteristics. You have a passion for business. You've taken many courses so far on business, marketing, human resources, things like that, cost controls. You can develop a product and customer focus because, hey, you've consumed products before and you've always been a customer, so you know what the perspective is like. You've worked in restaurants, you've worked in food service, so you have some execution intelligence. And let's be real, you're students, just like I am right now. I've failed before and I've succeeded. My successes are based on my failures. So you have a tenacity to succeed despite previous failures. When we put all of these four characteristics together, we can become successful entrepreneurs. So the next two slides is just giving you a detail of the four dimensions again. Okay, I've already talked about these in the previous slide, so feel free to go through these at your own leisure. We're saying the same thing, just in a little bit of a different way. Okay, so I'm going to continue to the next slide. Okay, same thing here. The four dimensions again, just said in a different way. I'm going to continue to the next slide. Okay, so here are some common myths about entrepreneurs. Okay, first of which is entrepreneurs are born and not made. Okay, this is completely inaccurate and untrue. Entrepreneurs are not born. Okay, we have the basic fundamentals to be entrepreneurs. Okay, every single person. Okay, doesn't matter if you're a student, doesn't matter if you're a parent, doesn't matter if you're whatever. You have the basic ingredients in you to become a successful entrepreneur, and it was based on the four dimensions that we had talked before. This myth is based on the belief that some people are just genetically predisposed to be entrepreneurs, right? So this is the same thing with leaders, right? If you've taken leadership before, you'll know that we leadership can be taught and developed, right? Whereas back in the day, people thought, the big man theories was that, only, rich men could be, could be bosses or leaders, which is terribly untrue. Okay. So just like leaders, entrepreneurs are developed. Entrepreneurs are not born to be entrepreneurs. There's nothing that makes them special other than that they've been developed or they've developed over time to have an entrepreneurial appetite. Okay, um, it's it's saying that this is generally saying that there's not one person that is going to be an entrepreneur. Nobody's predisposed at birth to be a successful entrepreneur. Anybody can do it. Okay, you just have to have the passion for business, tenacity despite failure, execution intelligence, and a product and customer focus. Myth number two kind of builds off of myth number one. While no entrepreneur is born to be an entrepreneur, there are in some cases some common traits that successful entrepreneurs exhibit. This is similar to the trait theories in leadership. You'll find that uh, a lot of social phenomenon with respect to individuals and performance and success and stuff like that follow a general timeline. Usually, it's like the old, outdated theories. Then next is trait theories, then behavioral theories, and then a mix between the two. So this is where entrepreneurial research got into trait theories. So these are characteristics of successful entrepreneurs. Okay, I would mention while there is some, validity to what these characteristics are, I think that the limitation here would be that these are pretty big lists, and I'm pretty sure if you look at the research, there's even more big lists. So it's basically designing describing everybody and everybody, which everyone can be an entrepreneur, but it does limit the applicability of trade theories. But there are some good ones here. For example, entrepreneurs are creative. They are, absolutely. They create an idea. They create a business. They are creators and thus creative. They have a strong work ethic. Absolutely. When you're your own boss, when your business is just starting up, you have to have a strong work ethic because what you put into your startup, is what you get out. You're going to be a moderate risk taker. Okay. You're not going to be super high risk. You're not going to have a super high risk appetite, but you can palate and you have an appetite for some risk. Um, you're a promoter. Okay. You're self-confident. So when you have a business idea, you have to build a justification around it. For example, our first assignment together, you're creating a business idea and you're telling me why you think it's going to be successful. Once you've lined up those series of arguments of communicating why your business idea is going to be successful, you become a little self-confident. Okay, like this, you think this is going to work. It's okay to be confident about this. You're a visionary. In some cases, uh, you have the capacity to envision future trends and see, or at least think about where the market's going to go. And you're persuasive. I mean, you're you're going to have to pitch a business idea to somebody at some point. You're going to have to be persuasive for them to see your point of view. And that's where our fourth assignment comes in, is you're creating a creative and attractive pitch, in that if you were to give that pitch to somebody, it would come off very persuasive. So I'm not going to go over all these lists here. Again, I think this is somewhat limiting, or limited in terms of the research, because this was conducted a long time ago. But there are some some good examples here. For example, creative, energetic, strong work ethic, moderate risk taker, persuasive, self-confident, things like that. So myth number two, entrepreneurs are gamblers. Okay. While entrepreneurs do have to have a risk appetite, we are absolutely not gamblers. Okay. We do take risks, but we understand that there's a relationship between risk and reward. Okay. As risk increases, so does our reward. Okay. So they would have for our scientific friends or our good math peoples, they would have a positive linear correlation. between risk and return. As risk increases, so does your potential return. Because we do want financial rewards, we do have to take moderate risks in order to achieve that reward, right? Um, so we do, in some ways, make a gamble because there is some risk, but we are not hardcore gamblers. We don't take a ton of risk, but again, because we do want some rewards and returns, we do have to take a moderate risk. Myth number 3, entrepreneurs are motivated primarily by money. Okay. Now, in the previous slide, I said that money is a pretty heavy or a very large reason why entrepreneurs are motivated to become entrepreneurs. However, they're not primarily motivated by money. Okay, entrepreneurs, especially in entrepreneurs can create not-for-profits. Entrepreneurs can create social organizations. In fact, we have here, entrepreneurs sometimes find that the pursuit of money can be distracting from their cause, right? There's a lot of restaurants in Toronto that were created by entrepreneurs, and they are entrepreneurial firms that allow people to come in and pay what they can pay to eat at that particular restaurant or a quick service restaurant. Okay, if they were primarily motivated by money, they would be paying like a set price, right? Um, Now, while entrepreneurs are not motivated primarily by money, you need to understand what your costs are, and you need to at least cover your costs. Okay. Um, a lot of entrepreneurs are really focused on sustainable business ventures, right? So this is things like reducing wastage, becoming socially responsible, environmentally responsible. Um, in a lot of cases, these endeavors or these ventures or business decisions don't necessarily have a very good P&L to them. Okay, like a lot of entrepreneurs do these things at a loss. Now, the reason why they do them despite losing a little bit of money is because there's value of those items to the cause of their business. So even though there's a cost to it, they still do it because it's good for society, the environment, and even their people. Myth number 4 is entrepreneurs should be young and energetic. Okay, while I believe it's important to be energetic, and a lot of entrepreneurs nowadays are quite young, as I had mentioned before. A lot of students coming out of high school these days have an aptitude and an appetite for being their own boss, right? However, this is a myth because you don't have to be young to be an entrepreneur. So right now, some of the most active ages, the active age group for business ownership in North America is anywhere from 35 to 45 years old. When researching, investors, they often cite the strength, quotation marks here, the strength of the entrepreneur as the most important dimension when they're making a business decision. Okay. Now, when they say strong or strength of an entrepreneur, they mean the experience, maturity level, reputation, and track record of success that that particular entrepreneur has. Okay. Um, Now, what does that mean for you in this course? But let's be realistic. Okay. You have experience because you've probably worked in the industry. You've done an externship, and most of your education is a very practical education. You have demos and labs. You have tons of experience. At this point, you have some maturity. Okay, you're mature people, you're mature students. Um, you've gone through professionalism with career prep. You have a good, you likely have a solid reputation with your with your bosses in your workplace, but also your professors and your chefs. And those people could vouch for your track record of success. You know what I mean? Your lab teachers or your lab professors, they know what you do real well. So do your bosses. Okay, even with me throughout the course of this throughout the progression of this course, I can be a reference to attribute or not attribute to tell people about your track record of success. Okay, as a result of these criteria or dimensions of the strength of a entrepreneur, these criteria tend to favor older rather than younger entrepreneurs, simply because of material experience, reputation, and a track record of success. So there are some changing demographics of entrepreneurs. Okay, there were 6.2 million women-owned business in 2002, which was the most recent statistic I could find up, and this number was up a whopping 20% from 1997. Okay, so what this tells us is that in North America, women are becoming are more often than not becoming entrepreneurs. So no longer are gone are the days where men were the entrepreneurs. That's not the case anymore. So women, just as equally as men, are becoming entrepreneurs or have a huge appetite for entrepreneurial ventures. One example would be my mother. Okay, she collected receivables for businesses for a long time, and she said, "Hey, I can do this myself." So she now owns her business, collecting receivables. It's an outsourcing business, so businesses pay her and her business to collect their accounts receivable. And she's an entrepreneur, and you know what I mean. She's doing receivables now within business. Her education was within hotels. Okay, so she had zero background in collecting receivables other than her experience. Okay, so she didn't have any academic background, but she's now an entrepreneur in an area that she likes. Okay, another one of my friends, she worked in marketing for a bit, and now she has her own marketing firm. What would be more examples? A lot of the people, a lot of the instructors within the college, they have their own, a cookbook, or they have their own catering. They sell products on the side, right? And this makes them women entrepreneurs. So we're seeing an upshift or an increase in participation from women in the entrepreneurial ventures. Okay, even there was a with all this COVID-19 going on, there was an article I read the other day. I forget where it was or where it came from, but they said that they did some research and they found that women leaders, uh, businesses with women leaders, were some of the most successful firms and even organizations in during the COVID-19. We're still in it, but during the COVID-19 outbreaks. One particular citation was the Prime Minister of New Zealand, I think it was. They're praising the lady because her right now in New Zealand there are no new cases. They have completely squashed COVID-19, and they're using her organization and how they dealt with it and her leadership as a model for how countries and political organizations in the future can effectively deal with COVID-19. So the demographics are changing. So more changing demographics. While I said, successful entrepreneurs are one of the myths anyway was that entrepreneurs are young and energetic. Okay, while that has been debunked, there is still an increasing interest among young people to become entrepreneurs. Okay, and according to one study, 7 out of 10 high school students wanted to start their own business, right? A lot of high schools nowadays are offering increased amount of business courses that you can take. In fact, when I was in high school, I had to go to summer school because I took all the business courses you could take, and because I did that, I was missing out on like 2 tech credits, right? So I had to go and make those up in summer school. I was missing 2. I only had to make up 1 because my guidance counselor basically took my work experience as another tech credit, which was kind of nice of him. And as the interest in entrepreneurship has grown, colleges and universities have started to offer entrepreneurship courses. Okay, obviously you're taking one right now. But even George Brown College has an entire department dedicated towards entrepreneurship. It's called Start GBC. I believe the manager of Start GBC is a great resource for you. There's lots of great stuff on their website. I believe his name is Neil Elliott. Okay, so he's worked with a lot of startup firms. He's helped people secure funds. Now, while George Brown College has an entrepreneurial department, we also have an entrepreneurial program with the Center of Business. So an entire 4-year program dedicated to helping people learn about entrepreneurship. So here we're going to talk about the economic impact of entrepreneurial firms or ventures. Okay, so I think in the past or in the prior slides we've been like, hey, okay, entrepreneurship is good for the individual, and there's a lot of great characteristics that successful entrepreneurs exhibit. You know what I mean? You can make a lot of money being an entrepreneur, but what does it do for the economy? What are some of the impacts on Canadian life that that entrepreneurs have? So first is innovation. So this is a dimension of entrepreneurial firms in that they're always creating something new. They're always disturbing the market, right? So think back about back when Amazon was a thing or just becoming a thing. That was an entrepreneurial idea. Uh, Amazon one is massive right now. It's huge. Bezos, I think is his last name, is worth billions of dollars, and he really innovated the online purchasing game. Not only could you buy stuff on Amazon, but you could also get it delivered. They've turned that into a streaming platform for music and TV, right? They're very innovative. Even in restaurants, right now, Buka restaurant. Oh man, I forget the chef's name. I had him in to talk to another class last semester. He's creating a startup right now under the Buka label. I can't tell you too much about it, but it is completely innovative. It is going to change the way you think about our industry. Entrepreneurial firms are also really great at creating jobs. Okay, that's why everyone support local, is because those are local people supporting small or medium local businesses, right? Because they create jobs, they help people pay their rent, they help people put their kids through school, things like that, right? Um, so these are two really awesome economic benefits of entrepreneurial firms. There's more. But again, innovation. So basically innovating the way we live our lives, or even questioning it really, and then helping create jobs. You know what I mean? After this COVID-19 stuff is over, a lot is going to rest on the heads of entrepreneurs to create jobs for all the people that lost their jobs before. While we had previously talked about some economic impacts of entrepreneurial firms, there's also some societal impacts, right? And even impacts on larger firms. Some societal impacts that entrepreneurial firms have is that they really change the way we think of things by disturbing the market. They make our lives easier by offering us innovative and new products and solving problems that we as consumers have. They enhance our productivity, okay? They improve our health, and they entertain us in a bunch of ways. Like my example before was Amazon, right? So, and a lot of entrepreneurial firms nowadays have a much higher appetite to be sustainable, right? So this is, them continuously monitoring performance based on their triple bottom line, understanding that, the three pillars of sustainability, economic, environmental, and societal, those are key to any business decision. And by focusing on those three pillars, they're enhancing or decreasing their negative effects on society. Okay, a commonly referenced corporate social responsibility model. It was created by Donna Woods. As an entrepreneurial firm, you don't need to solve all the world's problems. You just need to help solve the problems that your business creates. So, for example, in restaurants, we have a wastage problem. Pretty much every single restaurant does. You don't have to solve the waste problems for every restaurant. You just have to solve the waste problems that you have and the impact that you have on society and the environment. Okay, so typically entrepreneurial firms, because they're so flexible and fluid, they tend to be much more sustainable and have a greater impact on society. They also have a huge impact on larger firms. So as I had told you before, entrepreneurial firms are more risk are less risk adverse. They're innovative and proactive. Um, Whereas larger firms or conservative firms are much more, they're less risky. They like less risk. They're less innovative, and they have a wait and see kind of mentality, right? So, and this, I kind of gave the example of isomorphism, right? So, and how that happens, or where the impact on larger firms is the larger firms, they're like, hey, that little business over there's got a great idea, and they're doing absolutely great with their business model. They investigate your business. And then they tailor their business model around your effective business model. They may look a little bit like you or change to become more like you. In fact, they'd probably become a competitor at that point. But it helps those larger businesses become more effective and efficient. Okay. So here's the entrepreneurial process. So this is the 4 steps that it takes to go from concept ideation to managing and growing the entrepreneurial firm. These also have, some steps that have some context for your business assignments. Okay. For example, step number 1 is deciding to become an entrepreneur. Okay. So when you're reading the research during week 1, okay, and you're conducting research, um, you, and just being in this course, you're effectively deciding to become an entrepreneur. So I've kind of checked that one off for you. Step number 2 is developing successful business ideas. That's where you take the research in assignment number 1, put it together, identify your target market, and create a menu based on your business and your target market. Okay. Once you've done that, step number 3 is moving from the idea to an actual entrepreneurial firm. So this is essentially assignments 2, 3, and 2 and 3, right? So you're creating standard recipes, you're gathering your costing information, and then you're going to be costing out those recipes, right? So you're transitioning from just an idea into making something more realistic, right? So you're taking your idea and you're putting it into practice. Step number 4 is you're going to be managing and growing the entrepreneurial firm. This is essentially assignment number 4, where you're creating your plate plans and stuff like that, but you're also creating a PowerPoint present to pitch your idea to a potential investor. This is attempting to grow your entrepreneurial firm. Okay, so this is the 4-step process. This course will, in a lot of ways, take you through steps 1 through 4. However, in the end, to create a business proposal that is solid and complete, you may need to take it a little bit further than this course. And just because I technically will stop being your teacher at the end of these 6 weeks. If you still want help with your business idea, I'm here. Okay. As you move on through the college and, on to whatever awaits you outside of the college, I'm still here. I'm just an email away for me to help you with your ideas. Okay, so what are the next steps? This is my last slide. Thank you for watching. Please watch the other tutorial videos posted to the assignment number 1 folder. Uh, Review those, understand what's expected for assignment number 1. If you have questions, email me. Browse the entrepreneurship research resources that are contained in the assignment number 1 folder. Read through it. As you're reading through the research there, and they're not academic articles, they're conference proceedings or conference reports, so they're written quite nice and quite plainly. Try to think about how you would wrap those resources or that research around a business idea, right? So again, my example was sustainability. If I had a food truck, my food truck could be more sustainable, okay, and that could make it more attractive or successful, right? Try to put that research into a potential business idea. Okay, it has to be food. I missed the D there on the food business idea. So try and think of a potential food business idea. And some examples that have been used in the past is food trucks, catering, food production, takeout restaurants, full service restaurants, even web-based food distribution. So that's either food boxes or one example is a gentleman that I taught. He did kimchi. So he did 6 variations on kimchi. Um, and 6 different recipes and things like that. And he was going to sell those on an online platform. Once you've done those things, I want you to start working on assignment number 1. Assignment number 1 is due at the end of week 2. Okay. My office hours are on Thursdays. The times will be posted to Blackboard. On Thursday, if you have class in the morning, come to my office hours during that time. And if you have class during the afternoon, on your StuView schedule, come to office hours during your class time on Thursday afternoon. Okay. On our Blackboard shell, there's essentially 2 different classes that have been put together. So that's why I'm separating the office hours there. Okay. So again, if you have questions, send me an email, and I'll give you an answer, or even come to office hours and we can shell out your idea, right? I can be a sounding board for your business idea. Okay. Again, at the end of the day, I'm your project advisor for this course. If you have questions, I'm here to make you successful. And I guess some closing words here. Would be to, I know these are challenging times. I know there's a lot of uncertainty. If you need something, if you need a resource, or if you need some help, or Dave, I'm stressed. Dave, there's something going on in my personal life. You got to keep me in the loop with those things because I can help you. Okay. The college has increased the amount of resources to students right now, and if you need something, you let me know, and I'll connect you with somebody that can help. Okay. So that's it for this week. Please review the assignment instructions for assignment number 1. You can go back in this video or look on Blackboard. And then next week, we're going to go over assignment number 2 and what's required with your standard recipes and ingredient consolidation list. Okay, so that's all I have for today. I hope you have an awesome week. And again, if you have questions, feel free to send me an email at david.cleary@georgebrown.ca or come to office hours on Thursday. Thank you for watching this video.